The mix.
Welcome to Command HQ. I think it's let's see, Thursday, September 21st, 2023. And we're here because Merrick Garland is perjuring himself with Congressman Johnson. And we have a couple clips. But we also wanted to talk about some Russell Brand stuff. Agent X, I know you have a lot in your mind about Merrick Garland. And
What a lot. I mean, dude, think about Merrick Garland. What an institutional loser, right? He has a lifetime appointment on the federal bench. A lifetime appointment on the federal bench. Let himself be used as a political pawn with respect to Obama appointing him to the Supreme Court. Like, think about how you have to think about yourself when you know that you're not, like, Mitch McConnell is not going to allow anybody to get confirmed, but you allow Obama to put you up and basically disgrace you and embarrass you by not even knowing that you're not going to get a vote, even a vote. Totally used and abused by Obama and was happy to do it. Political hack, and then steps away from a lifetime tenured, a lifetime appointment on the federal bench, not to go into private practice and make millions and millions of dollars, but to become attorney general and be Joe Biden's little whipping boy, and basically protect Hunter Biden, go after Trump, Biden's political opponent, and just be all around a total. I'm trying to think of the right word. He's just just a bootlicker for Obama and Biden. That's all he is. Can you imagine not having that much self-respect in yourself, or not having not having such a low level of self-worth that you become Barack Obama and Joe Biden's bootlicker? I mean, come on. I mean, the guy's a total hack.
Let's play this clip with Mike Johnson and Garland. I want to get your reaction, Agent X. I know you can't hear it, so set it up if you can.
With anyone at FBI headquarters.
Yeah, let's start it from the very beginning.
You had personal contact with anyone at FBI headquarters about the Hunter Biden investigation?
I don't recollect the answer to that question, but the FBI works for the Justice Department.
I'm sorry. You don't recollect whether you've talked with anybody at FBI headquarters about an investigation of the president's son? You had personal contact with.
Okay, so Congressman Johnson there asked Merrick Garland if he had any personal knowledge of the Hunter Biden investigation, and Merrick Garland responded with, "I don't recollect."
I don't recollect. Yeah, that's an answer. That's the answer anybody gives when they know the answer is yes, but they don't want to say yes, so they say, "I don't recollect."
There was a bunch of nuggets from this Garland testimony where he was misleading Congress, outright lies. They're never held accountable. They're only held accountable if they were in Trump's cabinet and they refused to testify.
Well, do you remember when Eric Holder got held in contempt of Congress and I think that there was another Obama official that got held in contempt of Congress. Um,
Yeah, for the Fast and Furious
yeah,
Mexican cartel
and
stuff.
yeah, and then the DC prosecutors, the U.S. Attorney's Office in DC, refused to prosecute, but then they turn around and they prosecute um, Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro for contempt of Congress uh, for refusing to comply with the January 6th committee stuff. You know, same conduct, different rules for depending upon which party you belong to. You know, I'm a big believer in the uniparty as well, but
Yeah, that's a
this
good
is
point.
all just a big it's all a big cabal. But at the same time, you know, the fact it's interesting that they go after people who are on the right, um, and they really make examples of it. And you know, some of the stuff they're doing with the January 6th defendants, the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., is is wild. I mean, we talked about Ray Epps, one single misdemeanor charge of disorderly conduct, no incitement charge, no insurrection charge. He's going to walk away with probably probation, and meanwhile, you're getting people any getting anywhere from 3 years to 20 years for just walking into the Capitol. And a lot of those cases should have been thrown out because they were charged with trespassing, but on a trespassing in a federal building. But you had police waving them in. I mean, we have videos of that. Police just waving them into the Capitol. Um, it's super bizarre, bro. I mean, the level of and we don't have a justice system, we have an injustice system. And the level of inequity in the justice system is remarkable. I mean, all the like from the January 6th defendants to the contempt of Congress cases to you can just go down the line. Um, the way that they're treating Trump, um, it's absolutely wild. I mean, the only person actually doing their job is the judge in Delaware in Hunter Biden's case, who's a Trump appointee, who who issued an order today, I think, requiring that Hunter Biden show up to a hearing. He didn't want to show up in person, um, which is pretty. Usually they let people
Remarkable.
appear remotely, but it's pretty petty on her. But at least she's holding his feet to the fire.
Let's play this clip with Congressman Massey asking Merrick Garland about Ray Epps, and I believe that Merrick Garland gives the same answer, that he doesn't recall or recollect what's going on with Ray Epps. But Ray Epps was charged a day before this hearing, so
And the day, by the way, that was in reference to Ray Epps, and yesterday you indicted him. Isn't that a wonderful coincidence? On a misdemeanor. Meanwhile, you're sending grandmas to prison. You're putting people away for 20 years for merely filming. Some people weren't even there yet. You got the guy on video who's saying go into the Capitol. He's directing people to the Capitol before the speech ends. He's at the site of the first breach. You've got all the goods on him, 10 videos, and it's an indictment for a misdemeanor. The American public isn't buying it. I yield the balance of my. And the day, by the way, that was in reference to Ray Epps, and yes.
okay, so maybe that wasn't a great clip, but
It's funny because Massey, he is known for stirring up a lot of shit. He even makes Republicans mad. And he's known for stirring up a lot of shit. He's like right of right, more out there than uh, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I don't know, but I'm looking at his district and it's really interesting, his congressional district, because it's kind of like it kind of goes over and touches West Virginia, the southern border of Ohio, but like wraps around Lexington, and it kind of goes between Lexington and Louisville. Um, it's very, very interesting, the district that he's in, and he keeps getting reelected. But apart aside from that, yeah, Merrick Garland's a total liar. Merrick Garland should be impeached. Merrick Garland should be disbarred. Um, it's really embarrassing, really, really embarrassing, that we have someone like that as our attorney general. I mean, Eric Holder was a nut. You know, like I always say, what's the first thing Trump should do if he gets into office? The first thing he should do is go into the Justice Department and fire everybody from the attorney. Well, obviously the attorney generals, but fire the most senior prosecutors, the most senior bureaucrats, all the way down to the janitor, and rebuild the DOJ from the ground up. That would be something. That would be a lasting legacy. Is to fundamentally transform that corrupt government entity. Um,
There's a
and
lot of
that's
things
really
that
what
need to
he
get
should do.
changed. I mean, including the FBI, it needs to get overhauled, probably just deleted, as well as a lot of these, law enforcement agencies are just meant to persecute Americans. And what we're seeing too is that the overcriminalization in society is taking a toll on everything. I mean, it's one thing, of course, to focus on what is appropriate, which is violent crime and mitigating the risks there, but they're going after so many different things like the IRS, taking
Well,
away some of
it's
their teeth.
interesting, like, like, all these agencies have their own enforcement divisions, like you said, the IRS has their own, basically, police force that nobody really hears about,
Yeah,
but
how come all these
you don't have
agencies have
the
their own, paramilitary law enforcement arm?
yeah, and why do you need okay, like, let me give you like, the FBI is like, why do you need it? Like, if you just deleted it right now, um, like, would anything change? Yeah, it'd probably change for the better, particularly in DC, but places like, flyover country in America, things wouldn't change a bit. Just think about those Idaho murders. No, no, no. I think both the Idaho murders and the Gabby Petito stuff. There was one FBI agent in like anywhere near those jurisdictions. One. I mean, remember for Gabby Petito, they had one FBI agent who was,
In Wyoming,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, you know, like the FBI is concentrated in DC, New York, somewhat in Los Angeles and San Francisco, and then for the rest of the
Chicago.
country, they don't care. Yeah, it's because you have every government agency has its own little police force. You have Border Patrol, you have the ATF, you have the IRS. They all have their own little police forces. And you don't need the FBI. The only thing that the FBI is doing right is going around and infiltrating groups and setting citizens up um, to commit crimes and basically inducing them and entrapping them to commit crimes. And we've seen this over and over again. Look at what happened to Whitmer and Governor Whitmer in Michigan. It came out that a lot of those people who were involved were FBI agents, uh, putting them up to the kidnapping plot. And we see this like time and time again that these FBI agents are going out and they're picking on vulnerable people to go out and commit crimes or acts of terrorism or whatnot. And yeah, it's there. If you just totally just deleted the I think America would be better for it.
Um, I mean, there's several ways you could do this. You could just get rid of a lot of the paramilitary law enforcement arms of different agencies like the IRS, or even the SEC has, I believe, their own agents, and stuff like that, and like combine it into a very cleaned out FBI. Or there has to be some reorganization here, and it's also not just on the federal level. Any president that comes in needs to put a lot of pressure on local jurisdictions, states, and counties to ensure that a lot of this federal, um, interoperability is restricted. Like the DEA, for example, comes into counties and they have these task forces, and they're set up under the assumption that they're going to intercept drug trafficking or stuff like that. But what actually ends up happening is it just becomes this, and this has been well documented, and there's been several of these DEA agents who have got, into hot water and prosecuted for stealing money and stealing a bunch of these assets from these drug dealers. These federal task forces probably need to get reviewed and narrowed and focused on just really important drug trafficking. And again, a lot of this can be stopped anyways from sealing up the border. So they're treating the symptoms and they're not treating really the cause of a lot of these
Right.
problems. And again, this is their intent. They want to create this endless cycle of money laundering and corruption and, persecution of the average American taxpayer.
Hey, so let me
We have this uniparty photo up, by the way.
of course,
Zelensky
it's-
getting 23 billion or whatever.
Hey, so
No,
let me
so
ask
this
you a
is Kevin
question.
McCarthy. By the way, this is Kevin McCarthy and
Hakeem Jeffries.
Hakeem Jeffries, as well as Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell on the right.
It's terrible.
I mean,
Zelensky
they're all
is going to go
working
down.
together.
Zelensky is going to go down, I think, when the dust settles, as one crazed lunatic. I mean, he literally shot a missile into Poland to try to provoke NATO
World
to
War
get into the
III.
war. He's bombed his own people. He's bombed his own hospitals, trying to blame it on Russia. I mean, this guy is sick. He is really sick. He is a warmongering piece of shit.
Canceled elections.
Yep. He had the transsexual I guess, Minister of Defense.
That was just
which
recently
was,
fired.
yeah. Hey, let me ask you something. So, not to change subjects too quick, have you heard about all these hacks in Las Vegas?
Yeah, at MGM. Let me pull some stuff up about it.
Apparently, it's
What's going
far
on there?
worse. Apparently, it's far worse than what. So I saw in they got Harrah's and MGM, and they wanted a ransom. I think maybe MGM paid the ransom, but apparently it's far worse. People in Las Vegas are saying that, like, literally, parking meters are going down. Um, yeah, the parking meters are going down. That you can't get money out of machines. That everything is hand pay. That ATMs are down. That slot machines are down. And it's far worse than just MGM and Harrah's. And we're getting no reporting on it from the mainstream media. And one of the thoughts that I had is, you think this would be a major story, right? Yeah, elevators are being hacked. You think this would be a major story, but do you think that the reason they're not reporting on this is because, as they're trying to transition us into a digital society? Like, listen, it's so crazy. You go to a baseball game now or a football game, and you can't pay for cash with anything. Like, my dad and I went to a NASCAR race recently, and we took cash with us, and nothing. We couldn't pay for anything with cash.
Really, at a
Everything was
NASCAR
card
race?
only. Wait, what?
At a NASCAR race?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
everything was card only.
Wow.
It was shocking. Like, like NASCAR races, they're a little bit different than like your typical football game and basketball game, baseball game. Like, they have these huge like areas outside the track where they have like haulers that sell t-shirts and souvenirs and merch and things like that. And we couldn't pay cash for anything. And apparently it's like that with a lot of yeah, we went to a baseball game. We had sort of ran into the same problem. Everything was card only. Um, and recently, and it's just kind of bizarre. But I think that they don't want to report on this because as we go to an all digital society and particularly an all digital currency, they don't want to sort of let the cat out of the bag as to how trapped we would be. So, like, one of the things that I've been doing, and you should probably be doing it too, bro, is I've been buying silver, like just a little bit of silver every month. Um, because you never know when like when the system's gonna go down and you're not gonna be able to pay cash. Um, so yeah, it's just very, very weird.
Yeah, you're right. There hasn't been a lot of reporting on what happened in Vegas with a couple of these casinos getting hacked. And admittedly, I didn't do a bunch of research on this either, but MGM obviously was the big one. And then Caesars paid a ransom. I
Yep.
believe MGM, I don't know, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I'm not sure. But so there's reporting here that says that this is kind of like a retaliatory hack. MGM hack followed failed bid to rig slot machines, scattered Spider Group claims. Who knows? Whether, and that's another thing. Like, okay, so that's another angle. Hackers could easily rig the slot machines in Vegas and then siphon off whatever amount of money, kind of like Office Space, off the top. And maybe this was going on for a long time, and they were trying to um, blackmail the executives of MGM and saying we're going to expose the scheme unless you pay us X amount of money, dollars. So, you're buying our silence. And maybe someone said no, and then they took down the whole system. Who really knows? But it's a big issue. And um, I think this is kind of a breadcrumb for what might happen in the future here with more and more systems being hacked and the level of infrastructure in our world that depends on these systems being up and available.
Yep.
And
No, there's no doubt,
relative
man.
to your comment about everything being card related, just think about the card processing fees. It depends, of course, on the retailer, but it's about 1.75%. That's 1.75% inflation for every single purchase you've ever made in your life, pretty much, if you use a card. I mean, that
Yeah.
adds up after a
No.
while.
Well, like I said, I've been buying silver and I try to find deals where I can buy silver at spot. But you look at the markup and the markup is incredible. I mean, yeah, they have to make a profit, but they actually charge you more if you use a credit card to pay. They charge you 4% more because of the credit card fees. Uh, as opposed to paying by check. So yeah, everything it used to be that those fees were pretty small. They were like 1%, and now they've ballooned to 4%. So yeah, you're right. You have a 4% inflation or 4% tax just by using digital payments. It's kind of wild when you think about it. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like I think we're gonna get trapped inside of a with a digital currency. I think we're going to get trapped. Um, and I think that this is sort of the plan, right? It's to trap us with a digital currency, not just so they can track, trace, and database every transaction and have some degree of control over how we spend our money, but it's going to be a lot easier for them when they want to shut the system down or collapse it. Right now everybody takes cash for the most part, except when you're dealing with, major sporting events. But, you can walk into a gas station and pay with cash. Uh, there's going to come a point where that's not going to be possible anymore, and it's going to be a lot easier to crash the system then, and then we're really going to be trapped. So it's not just the digital dollar. I think you and I'm sort of surprised that they haven't pushed that out more than they have already. Like they've been really silent about it. I think what they're just trying to do is to put us into a total digital currency, through debit cards, credit cards, get us used to the idea first, and then roll out the digital dollar. So then they can actually put um, more restriction. It'll be easier for them to say, okay, here's $1,000, but you can only spend this on food. You can't go buy an Xbox with it. You know what I mean? So they're just warming us up now and sort of taking us into this cashless society. And they're not reporting on Vegas because Vegas is basically, with the exception of, you know, going in and laying down your bills on a casino table, is pretty much turned into a cashless city. You pay for your
You're
hotels with a
seeing
card, you pay for
you're
cabs with
seeing
a
more
card.
reporting about cyber attacks too.
Yep.
Clorox, I pulled up some articles related to that. Talking about supply shortages. So they're, remember during the pandemic, they were saying that supply shortages were related to lockdowns, but now they're saying that shortages are going to be related to these cyber attacks. Pull up some articles here.
Well, hey, so I know it's getting late, so I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on one thing before we signed off. What do you think about these aliens, these alien mummies in Mexico? Oh yeah, Clark's did get hacked. Um, that's wild. Yeah, and I think you're seeing this uptick in cyber attacks, to sort of condition us to it, but it's sort of the lead up to war with Russia and China, right? Like what they're doing is they're poking and prodding, um, at our vulnerabilities, and they're getting us more conditioned to it. Um, and I think you're going to start to see more in the ramp up to an actual hot war with Russia and China. But no, I thought this was super interesting because they apparently presented these in the Mexican Congress. These mummies, they look like paper mache uh, dolls, but I was watching a live stream where they took these mummies into a medical facility and live streamed the whole thing and took x-rays and I guess CAT scans of them, um, and they I guess they did some sort of sampling with it, with them, in terms of trying to see if they could come up with like a DNA composition or something like that. And they live streamed the whole thing and they said, yeah, these are not these are a single organism. These are not sort of bones pieced together or paper mache or whatever else. Like they are the real deal. And it's very interesting that this story is being largely ignored. Meanwhile, we get a lot of bunk stuff with like the congressional hearings and these UAP stuff, but like this is totally ignored. It's really strange.
Well, what kind of data did they have on the like DNA or X-ray testing that they did on these so-called alien mummies?
I think they live streamed it. They like actually live stream them going in and taking x-rays of these mummies, and I think the DNA, would have to try to find the article that I read, but they basically said that they didn't share any DNA which was common to anything on earth. So I don't know if you know, but like our DNA, like I think it's the percentages humans share 50% of their DNA with a banana. And the DNA difference between a human and an ape is like we share like 99.9% of our DNA with apes. So the fact that their DNA doesn't match anything, not just our DNA, but anything on Earth, is crazy.
I don't really know. I hate getting into this area only because I usually think all these things are hoaxes. But what we've seen recently with some of these sightings, I usually just think it's some sort of like government psyop distraction from some other major event. And I know that's what a lot of people say, but it's true. You got to think about it not necessarily from just a factual perspective. You need to think about it from kind of like an intuition, heart of hearts perspective. And when you think about it from that angle, it just doesn't make sense. Like, why would they roll this out now if they've had this for, X number of years? How long have they had it? We don't know. Because you'd think if this were real, like there would be evidence of these so-called aliens landing somewhere in Mexico or wherever they were captured. Like we don't know where they were found. Maybe they have some evidence of that. Maybe it's not been presented. I don't know.
Well, they were
It just
found in
seems very
Peru, but
weird.
you have to remember
Okay, so they're
too
found in
is
Peru.
that there are you have to remember that there are basically
Found in
ancient.
Peru. Okay, I just read this.
Yeah, they're ancient. So you have Göbekli Tepe, which is like a whole like city that was basically um just they've piled dirt over, like whether it's erosion or what, but they basically filled in this entire city. And a lot of ancient cities share a lot of similarities, and we can get into it one night on a stream. Like throughout the world, they share similarities in terms of sort of the design of their structures and things. Um, um, but a lot of it's buried because like mother nature takes over, and a lot of it's buried, and there's not a lot of science or researchers or scientific studies or researchers going out and sort of excavating um, these sites. And it's really weird. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but like apparently they found caves in the Grand Canyon that had like mummy tombs and hieroglyphics inside the cave, and like a very sophisticated series of tunnels and stuff. And the Smithsonian went in there, and the federal government just went in there and like shut it down. Like you can't get to it. Nobody knows precisely where it's at anymore, but it's like well documented. So I think that there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. Um, a lot of the conventional wisdom that we grew up and were taught, like the Big Bang Theory, they're going back on the Big Bang Theory now. Like the math doesn't work out, and the math for a basically a universe um, that has no beginning and no end works out. Like the math works out perfectly. And you know, physicists have been trying to explain quantum mechanics and the Big Bang theory through string theory, and string theory just it doesn't hold up. Um, um, yeah. Basically, um, yeah. So, anyways,
So it
it's really
violates the
interesting.
first principle of thermodynamics, which states that you can't destroy matter or energy. The Big Bang Theory
Yeah,
does.
there's let me find it real quick.
I mean, it's just a simple Google search, by the way.
Um, it's causal set theory. So causal set theory is basically events are interconnected. Um, I'm oversimplifying it, but it's basically you basically have a chain of events. So one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and
So kind of like a
causal set
Markov
theory.
chain.
Yeah, and so causal set theory, the math works out in terms of the design of our universe, as opposed to string theory, which breaks down. Um, uh, Nobody's been string theory can't sort of explain quantum gravity and things like that. um it's very weird. A lot of the things that we were taught growing up are sort of getting blasted. Like, we still don't know the nature of reality or existence, which is strange because physics kind of stalled out 30-40 years ago. If you listen to Weinstein, he says that basically physics stalled out because everybody got invested in string theory, and string theory is basically nonsense. And it was a distraction. Basically, string theory was a deliberate distraction introduced into academia to basically divert attention away from the fact that the government was doing all this research into anti-gravity and quantum gravity. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably plausible, but um, um, yeah, but string they've been working on string theory for 50 years and there's been no advancements in physics. I mean, hey, as you know, from a physics professor that we know, the only contribution to that physics has made to the scientific community in the past 50 years is putting pronouns in their email signature. So
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
pretty
this
much
goes
the only
back a long
contribution.
ways, but if you ever, a lot of you, if you've gone to universities, particularly in the US, research universities, huge, huge research universities, like the University of Michigan or whatever, they just get funding for these wild ideas, and then they maintain these ideas through their orthodoxy for years and years and years because they're getting money from the federal government to do research on, minor experiments generally. And so it just is like self-perpetuating. And then of course they do things like silence critics of the Big Bang or string theory, like Eric Weinstein. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast and he was talking about how much retaliation he's faced. And at one point, he got kicked out of, I think it was, whatever
Harvard.
institution he was associated with. I think it was MIT or Harvard. They kicked him
You
out,
get
and
kicked out of
they just
Harvard.
said like his research was, um, not
Junk.
going to be tolerated. Yeah, and it was junk.
Yeah, the head of the department turned around a couple years later and stole it,
Oh,
because
right,
he
yeah.
was doing something with set theory. But
Well, this is all
yeah,
like
no,
quantum computing. A lot of people have said and come out critics saying that it's just complete junk. It's use your word, Agent X. It's like quantum computing is so far away from us right now. And to invest so much research and time into creating these quantum computers when we can't even get qubits to align properly. I think like what you probably know this better than I do, but like the maximum qubits that they've been able to actually stabilize for a computing device with quantum computing is still like 8 or
yeah, it's
16.
so low. I
Very
mean, think
limited.
about it. I think they have a system with, I think they're up to 200 and maybe like 200. Let's just say 250 qubits. Think about how much you could accomplish on your computer right now. Think of a qubit as a bit, right? Like a one or a zero. The little transistor on the prosecutor on the processor. Like, what could you accomplish with 250 bits uh, on your computer? Not much. I mean, you're basically talking about computing um, uh, the very early days of computing, where they were doing computing with cathode ray tubes. Yeah, the problem is it's so hard to scale up because it's not traditional. It's like not a traditional like, oh, you need, you have X number of transistors. So for a quantum computer, you need the equivalent amount of transistors or qubits uh, that you would have with a classical computer, because you have issues like decoherence and issues with maintaining, or the states of the particles collapsing due to interacting with other quantum particles, things like that, where you actually have to have more qubits than you would have bits in a traditional or classical computer, because you need those additional qubits to perform constant error checking. So we're so far away from it, but when you look at it, we don't really have any alternative, because classical computing has basically reached its limits in terms of memory, in terms of processing power, in terms of our computing power in general. So we don't really have any alternative but to look at other forms of potential computing. And maybe quantum computing's not it, and no one has really thought of what the next sort of logical step is, moving us away from silicon based chips. But yeah, no, it is kind of junk science at this point, particularly with kind of some of the research that's been done. But yeah, dude, our YouTube hit our stream bad. Damn.
Hey, should we stream this weekend? It's top of the hour
Dude,
too. People probably want to get to
I'm
bed
planning
for
on
work tomorrow.
streaming. I'm planning on streaming tomorrow, brah. What are you
All
doing
right.
tomorrow, brah?
Yeah, let's stream tomorrow. Let's stream this weekend. Please follow the Twitter account Command HQ Stream, which is listed here in the lower third. Please like the video too if you can. Yeah. So anything you want to talk about before we head out, Agent X? Any topics you want to get me focused on to do research on for this weekend during the stream?
No, we'll figure it out. I mean, I think we'll talk more about Hunter Biden. I think we can talk a little bit more about
Yeah, let's
quantum
dive into
computing.
that. We'll do a deep dive.
The YouTube really just absolutely nuked
It's
our
interesting
stream.
too. Maybe it happens after a certain time period because we've been streaming for over 30 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Well, no, because like sometimes we go for like an hour and a half, and it doesn't nuke us. I don't know. I think we hit on certain topics and they just totally fudge the numbers. Could you get like we had over 600 viewers at one point, and the stream will end and it'll say we had 25 views, which is just total nonsense.
Mhm.
But do you want to show the picture of why we call this call our stream a hairy situation?
Yeah, let me grab it.
So this is Brock's new girlfriend. We just want to show a picture to our audience. He's so proud to have a new girlfriend. Yeah, there she is.
European woman right there.
Dude, I don't know, bro.
Dude, what do you think? What would you do if you showed up and there's a woman there with, an armpit full of hair?
I'd probably send her over your way.
I mean, whatever. Doesn't really
So
matter in the grand scheme.
I don't know.
All
Dude,
right. Let's
different
close it down.
strokes for different folks, bro. Different strokes for different folks.
Close it down here. Okay. Well, hope you guys have a good Friday. We'll see you this weekend. Hopefully, we'll stream tomorrow. Bye.
Thanks for watching Command HQ with Brock and Agent X. We'll see you next time.